Welcome to the Township of West Orange Rent Leveling Board Workshop Meeting. The March 31st, 2022 meeting at 4:30 p.m. This meeting has been posted. So the statement of compliance is that this notice of this meeting was given to the Township Clerk and posted on the Township Bulletin Board and the Township website calendar and sent to the West Orange Chronicle and the Star Ledger. This meeting has been properly noticed to the public in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. No new matters will start after 5:30 p.m. Madam Chair, the meeting is yours. And just to let you know, I did not receive any comments or any documents from the board to submit to the for consideration today. So have a good meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Smeraldo. So shall we begin with the roll call? Peter, I might actually need your assistance with that as well, because I am remote. That's all I'm going to say.
No, I will take that. I have that all set up for you. Okay. So I apologize. I had it up here in front of me. And where'd it go? All right. Well, all right. Well, okay. Yeah, I have the agenda. Okay. So, Mr. Campagna?
Present.
Ms. Gabriel Michael is attempting to get on. Board Member Huerta? Board Member Huerta? Absent. Board Member Myers? Board Member Myers? Board Member Rodriguez?
Present.
Okay. Chairperson Sanders?
Present.
Okay. You have a quorum.
Okay. Now that, do we, Peter, do we need to proceed? Now, I have the subcommittee reports as the next item, but do we need to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance like we typically do?
This is a workshop meeting. That is, you're the chairperson. This is a workshop meeting. We typically don't do that.
Okay, then we're not. We're going to just proceed with the subcommittee reports, starting with the discussion and review of the rent control ordinance. So who's in charge of that subcommittee?
I believe that is Ms. Myers.
Yeah, I thought it was Kabira. Yeah.
Oh, now is she not, isn't she absent?
She's absent at this point, correct.
Should we proceed to the next item until she presents herself? I think we should.
It's up to you. I mean, in the past, you have received a copy of the ordinance. The whole purpose of this meeting, I think, with this time, Board Member Huerta requested is just to discuss what she had submitted last time. If people were going to make comments and move forward with that. So that's why we had this meeting. That's why I sent out the reminder yesterday. If we're going to have any comments, please, or any commentary, please send it to me. So I did not receive anything. So it's up to you how you want to proceed. I can shoot this back to Megan. She may have it already, but that's up to you guys. The whole purpose was to delve into the ordinance, and that's what this meeting was requested for.
Yeah, so if I can interject at this point as Councilwoman and the liaison to the council committee. We have received some updates and modifications that we've been reviewing, I guess since we have commenced the commission and asked for those. So it would be my suggestion, and we've kind of bounced this back and forth relentlessly, in my opinion, and still not come up with real concrete adjustments, recommendations, and suggestions. And so now that we have approached this date and we have neither of the two commissioners who have asked for revisions and been the proponents of a revisionist type of ordinance, I suggest we move forward with whatever suggestions and recommendations that the entire commission has agreed upon to this date. Send it back to legal, because our legal department ultimately is going to rework and or rewrite this ordinance, and then have them present a finalized version or a proposed finalized version back to this commission for review so that we can present this to the council. The rationale behind my commentary is we've been meeting for over a year. We've all presented recommendations, changes, and our opinions. If we can't come to some conclusion and we all only have suggestions, then just forward those to our legal department in conjunction with what we discussed last month, which is use the Verona model to kind of sort of coordinate everything. And let's go from there, because otherwise we keep having these meetings, guys, and we're not progressing. Like, we're just continuing to have meetings. We're not saying we agree, we disagree. And again, the stakeholders who are adamant about change are not here yet. We can't keep doing this. Time is too valuable.
Yeah, I agree with that. In our past conversations, we had identified a few key points that, Ken, you were helpful in kind of clarifying for us. So I didn't have any feedback from those previous conversations. I was curious what Kabira was planning to discuss tonight. But aside from like adding a couple of the definitions, redefining the submission schedule and the notice schedule, other than that, I don't think there's anything material that we would need to have discussion on if Kabir is not going to raise any new points.
And I mean, I'll chime in if it's okay. My own personal view, and I've discussed this with Alex Graziano. I don't know if he's going to be continuing to work with. I mean, he certainly will be continuing with us, at least for the hearing that's coming up, which I can't be involved in. And whether or not and under what circumstances he continues beyond that remains to be seen. He's going to have a discussion with Rich Trank and whatever will have to be presented to the council, I suppose. But my own feeling is, and I think this is his position, that we probably would be best if we're going to do this going forward and have, regular meetings and have a rent control policy and so forth, is to adopt either the ordinance that Verona has with perhaps some changes, and I think there probably would be some changes, or a similar ordinance that's already put together, thought out, coordinated, so to speak. It doesn't make a lot of sense to make little changes here, there, and everywhere to our ordinance. It makes more sense to have one that's already been thoroughly thought out, prepared, and adopted somewhere else. I think we can use. I did read through, he sent me the most recent Verona ordinance, which they spent a lot of time putting together. And I can, if everybody doesn't already have that, I can certainly forward it. I highlighted a few things. There are certainly some things that we might change in that ordinance if we were to adopt it as a West Orange ordinance. The number of board members might be different. Remembering that Verona, I think, has a population of about 15,000, and we have a population of more than 3 times that. And some of the numbers might change in terms of the fees. We might be able to and might be wise to adopt higher fees, although that could be subject to some argument. There's a lot of things that could be done here. What's needed, though, to make those kind of changes is really a commitment from the mayor in our form of government, because he's the policy initiator. And the council obviously has to approve. And it's not that the council can't initiate things as well. They can. And for example, Councilwoman Williams, if she wanted to, could propose an ordinance like this, and the law department would certainly assist if there was some support for it, to draw it up. But without mayoral support, it really doesn't go anywhere. I mean, in our form of government, if you don't have the support of the mayor, it's not going to get done. It's a practical matter. So it's important that he be involved in this. And I don't know what Mayor Parisi's position is with respect to this. Remember, and I've said this repeatedly, it's been a long time before we've had any active rent control meetings. I can't remember one in the 23 years that I've been doing this, until these recent ones that we've had with this board. So, and there are arguments, by the way, about the effectiveness of rent control as a policy, and questions about whether it helps with the underlying reasons for them, which is housing shortage, which really is, while it is a municipal problem, it's more than a municipal problem. It's more than a county problem. It's a regional problem. And so there's just a whole lot of issues like that to think about and consider. But I think if we're going to continue along these lines and have an active board and have applications and hearings, we probably want to adopt a comprehensive, coordinated ordinance. And the best way to do that is to take one that's been done fairly recently that makes some sense. And I think Verona does that. Again, there may be some changes we want to make, but I think it's pretty decent ordinance.
Thanks, Ken. Tammy, do you have any indication of what the administration would view on this would be? Would they be supportive of something like that if we took it forward?
So absolutely. And so here's what we've continued to say all along, is that the administration is going to come with a purview that if this is not a real problem, why are we throwing money into something that hasn't demonstrated a true need?
Yeah.
Like, we've got some real situations in our municipality that require funding. And so, quite frankly, in the 1 year and 4 months tomorrow that we have been functioning as a rent leveling board, we've had one case presented to us. And in that one case, we're still continuing to give, the applicants an opportunity to come in and get it right. So I can
Oh, I think we just lost Councilwoman Williams. No.
Good.
Oh.
No, she's back.
Tammy, you were breaking up and we lost you for a bit. So.
While we're trying to get her back, I just want to recognize for the record that board member Deborah Michael is here. So can you say you're present, please?
Present. Sorry,
you.
came on at 10:40. I was having technical difficulties.
That's okay. Thank you.
So have we lost Councilwoman?
4:40, not 10:40, correct?
We lost you for a great while.
Back to what I was saying is, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. What I was saying is I can certainly, my purview. We have 5 elected officials. We have a mayor. We have a mayoral form of government, which is described as the Faulkner Act. If there is not a tremendous amount of need for any component of what is our governing responsibility, then we're not going to put money behind it. And so in the past 14 months that this board has convened, starting tomorrow, with tomorrow being April 1st, we've only had one application. And that one application has had to come back before this board twice already, to even be heard properly. There is not a lot of money that this municipality is going to put behind this.
We lost you again.
I think I can tell what the direction she's going.
Yes,
I don't know that precludes us from adopting a new ordinance, Ken. I think that in a way, adopting a new ordinance would actually save the resources that are being. Oh, sorry, Councilwoman Williams, you dropped off again.
Yes. So I know. I don't know what's going on with my phone. I apologize. I just don't. I don't see us putting money behind something that doesn't have a need. So we have one case, and that does not generate a need. Maybe if we had 3, 4, 5, and that's just my perspective from being in government.
So I guess the question that I would pose is, does adopting a new, more thorough ordinance similar to what Verona has put in place alleviate the challenges that our current ordinance is presenting, because it's not clarified, it has a lot of ambiguity, and therefore would the administration potentially be in favor of that? Because if not, then there's no sense in bringing it forward.
Well, I'm not gonna say that our ordinance as it exists has a lot of ambiguity. There's some issues with it, certainly, but here's the problem. We haven't had, there haven't been complaints by either tenants or landlords over the course. This ordinance has been on the books. And for all this time, it hasn't always been adopted on a biannual basis, which the terms of it call for. So one could question, if an application had been brought during that time, whether we would have been able to hear it under those circumstances, I don't know. That's an open question. But it was readopted, I think, in 2020 or 21. And so it exists now on the books. As a practical matter, we kind of have to enforce it since it's on the books now. And I think a landlord or a tenant making an application could hold us to, hey, you guys have this as your law, enforce it. So I think you can work with the existing ordinance for purposes of this hearing. The real question is, and one of the things that the board could do, which doesn't cost any money, it doesn't have to cost any money, is to determine whether there is a problem or not that justifies a rent control ordinance and board. Because the question becomes, is there a problem we just don't know about because people don't know about this ordinance or haven't, for whatever reason, brought applications to us? We don't really have an answer to that.
What we could do, Ken, is because I am the liaison, we could certainly bring together an inquiry and ask, do we really have a concern, and ask that we allocate resources, whether they be financial or just paperwork, to do a study to find out if we have a rent control issue that people just don't have the information, they don't know to come to us. We can gather information and do a study to see if there is a problem. And, there's the possibility of that. We can partner with, an entity that's already doing this kind of work, see if there's a grant opportunity, or we can just, as the council, if I take it back as something that we're asking to be done, since we really don't have an opportunity or space to determine if all the things, and that's where we've been for the past year. Our conversation has been focused on, do we have a rent control problem in West Orange? We have some people that say yes, we have a 30% tenancy occupancy rate. And then we have some people that say no, because maybe they don't know how to complain or whatever have you. It falls back to me, to our marketing of this commission being put out there to the public. If people know that this space is available, if they have problems, maybe they will respond and we'll find out that there is a problem. But until that social media marketing push happens, and we make sure the people who this impacts know what can happen or what's available to them, we are continuing to go in circles. And quite frankly, I'm just getting ready to take ownership of my time and say, y'all, we can't keep having these meetings and not progress. We've got to do something.
May I ask a question, Councilwoman Williams? My question is, where's the best place to notify the constituents that we have this board available to them? Is there one means of reaching out that has proven to be more successful than others? How does the township find out? Where's the best place for the township to find out about all the services that are available to them?
So the best place for any inquiry for municipal questions is going to be westorange.org, our township website. And we do have an isolated page for rent leveling, which houses all of our documentation. Mr. Smeraldo has done a superior job in updating the website, making sure documents as far as rent control are available to the general public. And again, we only have one resident who has come forward with a complaint.
So may I ask another question?
Certainly.
Do we have a way of tracking the data? Do we have a way of knowing that residents utilize the website? How many of them utilize the website? Like how do we, just because that website is there, how do we know that it's reaching our constituents?
Quite frankly, I don't know how to answer that question. I would say, again, these are the differences between, municipal responsiveness, support organizations to find out if this is really a problem, or, residents have to do something. So on our website, no matter what your issue is, there is a space on the homepage of the West Orange Municipal website that if you have a complaint, it doesn't specify what kind of complaint you must have. But if you want to lodge any type of complaint or inquiry, there is a tab on that website on the left column where you really don't even have to scroll down. It kind of comes on the home page almost, where you can lodge any type of inquiry and complaint, and it kind of gets filtered to the right department.
I get
So-
that. I just wonder if we truly know if people even go to the website, utilize the website.
There's no real way right now for me to answer that question. I'm certain that there has to be some type of metrics with how many residents click in a specific time period. Any website has that type of monitoring capability. So I'm sure the townships does as well.
Right.
But what I'm saying-
That's really, it's a John Gross question, and I'll certainly take it up with him. But, I believe that we do get some metrics from our website, but I'm not sure the degree of them or the specificity of them. I really don't know. But I know that there's that capability on almost all websites. It probably costs some money and takes some time for it to be done, and we'll have to wait and see if we have it. But I suspect we can get some of that information.
No, I'm just curious to know if the people that really need the information are even aware of it, are access.
I understand.
We really wouldn't know. We understand, but we really wouldn't know because again, we have to keep in mind that as far as even registering, we haven't done an effective job in communicating to people who have more than a 4-family property what the requirements are. And so here's the pushback on that, because from my perspective as a real estate professional in this industry, I'm going to bring you a duplicitous, a multi-complex perspective, right? So if I'm buying a property in a town, I, as the new buyer, must do my due diligence to find out what the rules and requirements are if I am coming into that municipality, right? Is it the municipality's responsibility to reach out to prospective homeowners or new homeowners, other than to do a basic general welcome, to talk about our rules and regulations? That's the due diligence of the buyer who is coming to do business in our community. So I get it, but I also sit on both sides of that equation. So it's been difficult for me to really sit back and listen, through this entire process. But I do understand both perspectives. But again, it's not the buyer is the buyer beware. That's a common caveat in any type of purchase. So it's not the municipality's responsibility to come here and hold your hand when you're making money. You're investing like any other business. So there's some things that the municipality is responsible for making sure you understand, but it's not our responsibility as a municipality to say, okay, how are you going to use this property? Let me mail you. Let me reach out. No, that's what you have to do. So it's difficult for me because we keep talking about what can the administration do. The administration does not have the onus of making sure anyone who comes in this municipality gets access to information other than us providing access.
Yeah,
so if we have a website, go ahead.
Don't we inherently have the duty to serve and protect our citizens, meaning underloved minority communities that are affected most by fair labor practices or fair housing practices? I mean, I totally understand your point, Councilwoman Williams, but the other side of that coin are the renters in town that might also be impacted by this.
Right, and the question becomes, to what extent does the marketplace, take care of that problem, and to what extent does it not? And I think the whole theory behind rent control ordinances generally is that if you have a serious housing shortage, it gives landlords a serious upper hand because they have all of the market, and so they can jack up prices higher than perhaps the market would otherwise justify. Of course, that can go back the other way too. So so to some extent, one would think that if there were tenants out there who felt that they were not being treated fairly, that they would come to the town or come to somebody to complain about it. By the same token, landlords, if they felt that they had severe hardships, that they would come to the town and say, hey, what's going on? Why, this isn't fair. But the marketplace doesn't always work effectively. So that's why, that's what has justified rent control ordinances historically.
Yeah.
And I just want to add as a caveat, because I know we've been talking about an increase in the 2% and 3. And I just want to make sure my colleagues understand that Montclair just changed their ordinance. So there is a 4% and 5% cap on increases. So I know we talked about it and we were a little precocious about, do we increase, do we not? But our neighboring towns do have some caps that are much higher than what we allow.
Right. And in fact, when I spoke with Mr. Gross about this whole topic months and months ago now, he had thought that we probably had a 4 or 5% increase number in our ordinance. It turns out we didn't. We had the 2 to 3% increase, which surprised him. And again, towns are different. We're not Newark or East Orange. We're also not Verona. So I don't know what the right number is if we go forward with all of this, but there's a range.
Agreed.
If I can interject real quick, I asked Megan to pop up the rent leveling board website just so people can see it. The members of the board, if you're not familiar with it, so that to answer some of your questions regarding how we get to everybody. So Megan, if you could, this is my high five sign, Megan. That was good.
Yes, I'm trying to find it right now.
Okay, thank you.
It's in commissions, right?
It's under board, no, under departments.
Yeah.
Departments.
Actually, yeah, I mean, that's.
But I will tell you this, just for the board's benefit, I do receive more calls from landlords than I do from tenants. In probably a 4-to-1 ratio, just for whatever reason. And it's a lot of them, it's because they're new landlords and they want to know how they can act and how they can raise the rents and what it goes on. What is available to them and how can they proceed based on our ordinance. So that's where most of this is, where most of our questions come from, just so everybody knows. And not that I get a tremendous amount, but I do receive probably about anywhere, I'd say about average about 8 to 9 calls a week based on inquiries. And again, it's mostly landlords. There's been a few residents, and most of the residents I receive are typically in 1 or 2 bedroom units. And I'm also getting a lot of calls from people live where there's HOAs. And I told, I have to explain to them that they're not part of the HOA. We're just not part of the HOA. So just to let everybody know that. So, but this is our website here. And we have our dates up there, as you see, the rent leveling board and, and our minutes and all that. We're going to have to update them as well. Our application forms. And I did, I worked with Mr. Graziano, just the board's updated. I did work with him on the objectors form, which is now, that should be, right there at the bottom, the request. So if you could click on that, please. This is the latest form that we created. And it goes 2 pages. And
have any of the tenants from Ashland Avenue submitted objective forms?
I will be supplying you with information by next Thursday. How's that? I don't want to talk about the board meeting without this being the board meeting itself. So, or you can call me offline. But this has been distributed. Let's put it that way, and it has been placed online. So
okay, great.
All right. So, but this was at the request of the board. So we worked on this, and so we placed this up online. So this is another form that's in there. So, and this is how we advertise. So that's everything. And if you scroll down a little bit more, Megan, you just keep seeing the different links that we have on there. So if there's any link that you want on there, let me know. If there's something that's wrong, please let me know. This is a live working document, and we put all this up there. So all right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Peter.
I mean, I'm inclined to err on the side of is there a problem? Do we need to put any more time and resources into this? We have an ordinance that is serviceable. We'll put it that way. We're learning as we go with the current application that's been submitted. I mean, my personal view is that we keep it as it is, and if something needs to change because there's suddenly an influx or massive demand on that side, we can revisit the idea of either revising or adopting a new ordinance. I mean, Ken, unless you would recommend that our ordinance is so deficient that we need to replace it, it's one of those things. Don't try to fix what isn't broken until we know that it's broken.
Yeah, well, that's been my view up to this point. But one of the questions, I mean, my discussions with Alex Graziano is what gave rise to the Verona ordinance suggestion. And I do think if this is going to go on and on and on and be very active, that it probably would be a good idea to revisit the ordinance. But
what do you think in terms of time commitment it would take from your team's sense, right? If we get the administration support, we say we want to adopt a slightly revised Verona.
It wouldn't take very long. I mean, I think we could make some minor changes, and we could have an ordinance ready for introduction to the council within a matter of weeks. So it doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't surprise me what Peter has indicated, that most of the calls now are coming from landlords, given the inflation that we've had.
Absolutely.
And there's difficulty in meeting their costs. Everybody has, I mean, read the newspaper, listen to the news. Rents have drastically increased across the board everywhere. So
yeah. So Councilwoman Williams, with that in mind, if we were to come to the administration with that plan of 2 or 3 weeks of work from the legal team to get this new ordinance in place that we deem as superior and more efficient, so that going forward it takes less time, effort, and aggravation of the entire administration, would you feel that would be something they'd be supportive of?
Absolutely. And the only, I guess, suggestion that I would have that I am in complete consent and agreement with is that we clarify some of those terms that I do not recall seeing in our ordinance. The definitions of tenancy of terms.
Tenant, renter,
I
repair,
do agree.
Improvement.
Right. I do believe that we should probably model what the Verona Township municipality has done and clarify that terminology. But outside of that, until we understand what's broken, how do you fix it?
Yeah, agreed. Okay.
I'm hoping that we are able to proceed with the one case before us without picking things apart. Like, is there any way we can address the case before us without delaying?
We'll carry on with
to.
we'll carry on with the current application under the current ordinance. That won't be delayed.
Okay, so that will be the plan going forward. In order to move things along, we're going to go with our current ordinance, but then beyond this one case, then we'll start tweaking as necessary. Is that my understanding?
We can start tweaking. However, what we have to, you're absolutely correct. We can only go with what we have on the books.
That's right.
And what we have on the books is currently what we have.
That's right.
So we can't add anything to it. We can't say, well, we're anticipating. It's basically what is on the books right now.
Exactly.
And, we're not going to speak to anything because we're not in a hearing session, but we have to take that based on the ordinance as it's written and make our decisions based on the current ordinance. What I'm suggesting, and I don't think this will impact any of our decisions, is that we clarify terminology in the current ordinance that we have. I think that would be an adequate upgrade and tightening up so that there's less confusion in our current ordinance. But outside of that, again, I'm just going to say to you what I've heard our mayor say to me often, like, you have to have a problem before you can fix it. And we don't have one. We have conversation. We have discussion. We have pontification, quite frankly, from concerned residents. But we don't have any actual cases before us stating that this is a need for us to address,
Okay,
except
this
for
is
the
true. This is true. So do we all agree that we have sufficiently discussed and reviewed the rent control ordinance? Shall we move on to the next topic?
That's fine by me.
Yes.
Okay, so who is on the subcommittee for the roles and responsibilities, including hearing procedures and rules? Who is in charge of that rent leveling board roles and responsibilities?
Well, I
Does
believe
anyone-
that was Ms. Myers also, but Mr. Campani, you were involved with that board, right?
Yeah, so we had only talked about just the structure, and that's where we all kind of either self-elected or volunteered for. And I think in general, that's worked okay with Chairman Sanders and myself as co-chair or vice chair, just to make sure that we have redundancy for absenteeism.
So there's nothing else to discuss in that regard? Nothing further then?
No, I think we had put it on the agenda in the previous workshop just because we didn't know exactly how to run a meeting and it was our first go round. But I think given our steep learning curve, we've taken that on and it's been, generally speaking, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
And this was put on also in case there was anybody who wanted to just do any discussion about, critiquing if there was anything we needed to do to improve. If you need me to do something, and that was the purpose of this, just to have an open discussion about it without violating the meeting itself. So if you have any questions for me or comments, concerns for me that you need me to do for the meeting, prepare for the meeting, then please let me know.
Didn't we need a board secretary?
Oh, we did.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah, that's what we forgot. We only discussed the chair, but we still need a secretary.
That's not going to happen right now. That's an administrative question. That is a budgetary question. It has been the question. I did speak to the administration about it. So whether that's going to happen or not, I cannot tell you. But I would be if I was able to make a motion and vote on it. You'd have my eyes.
But what I can do is actually take it back and just make sure there is a need, because what also is happening at this point is that their minutes are being taken by Mr. Smeraldo, and quite frankly, that's just not his role.
Yep.
And so we need to either have, so we're a quasi judicial board, right? And so just like the planning board has a board secretary, the zoning board has a board secretary, where I come in and advocate on this board is because we should have, if we're a quasi judicial board, we should have the same courtesy. Again, it didn't make sense for someone to be assigned where there wasn't a need. But now I can go back and I can talk about the fact that, well, we have had a case presented to us, and we do need someone to take those notes. We're in a Zoom environment still, so we do have the capacity to record it. But, we know town hall has opened back up, and we know that we're going back to life as we knew it somewhat before. So we can't rely on someone to take those minutes when they're that critical to the administration. So that's something I will advocate for and say, hey, at least when we're having a hearing, we need to have a representative that can take those minutes.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
And so, excuse me, everyone, that secretary cannot be among us?
Correct.
It cannot.
No, because we need to focus on, the cases at hand and be able to pay attention and.
Yep, I hear you. It's too much. It's asking too much. Got it.
I'm gonna add something though. I think that frankly, when you have a hearing, I'm not talking about a workshop session, but a hearing that's a contested hearing, it's going to have to be recorded in some fashion, whether it's on Zoom or it's on the recording equipment at town hall, because you need a record. I mean, you folks are acting as finders of the facts, and you're going to make probably findings of fact and conclusions of law at the end of a hearing, but it's going to have to be recorded, because that's the record that would then go to a court if it gets to a court, or to the council if it goes to the council first. And so that's not something that a secretary can do. That's got to be a verbatim record. And I think so. I think that it's always going to be, those things are going to be recorded.
Okay.
So meaning we need a transcription?
Well, if there was an appeal.
The planning board secretary and the zoning board secretary, what do they provide? Mr. Kaiser?
I think they provide minutes. They don't take a verbatim record. If somebody, and sometimes there'll be a hearing where one of the litigators will bring in a court reporter, certified court reporter, to make sure that they have a complete record. If they anticipate that there may be an appeal, and that's been done before the planning board, the zoning board, before hearings before the council, not recently, but years ago. But sometimes lawyers do that. They'll hire a certified court reporter to come in and take the meeting to make sure there's an accurate record. So one way or another, it's got to be recorded so that there's a record of it.
Okay, but that's something that if it gets escalated to the court, we could then figure out how to transcribe the record.
No, this is before it gets to that
No, I
point.
know, Tammy,
Yeah,
I know. We have a secretary that takes the minutes, but if we need a verbatim record, we can then transcribe it for submission to the court thereafter.
Right.
We don't need transcription in every meeting.
No.
No.
But if there's a hearing, if there's a hearing, if there's not a hearing, then a secretary can take minutes.
Perfect,
That's
good.
fine. Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Are there any other matters that we need to discuss this evening? Those were the two agenda items. They've both been addressed. Would anybody like to discuss anything else? Or have any questions?
None for me.
Crickets. It's crickets, everybody.
None.
I guess I should be adjourning this.
To adjourn. Yeah.
Yes,
you
I'm
move to
moving to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Prior to adjourning, just so you know, I based on your request, I'm going to tell everybody they have to, anybody who has to do with the next extension of our hearing, that they're going to have all their information or evidence, anything else that they want to submit to me by next Thursday. And then I will forward that packet to all the board members so that they're prepared for the following week.
Great, thanks, Pete.
That sounds wonderful.
Before we hang up, if you don't mind, I apologize. So did we have a 10-day deadline for the other people to put in their dissent, right?
They have the same deadline to apply. They have been notified. I have contacted them, and they are aware of the deadline.
Okay. And so what should we understand from a commission standpoint? Can you just share with us what that deadline is? And if you don't receive anything, then we're just going to resume.
I told them, I told them next Thursday, 7 days prior. They have to,
Okay.
They have to have it to me a week prior. So this way the board members have ample time to review. What I tell them by end of business, 7 days prior, then what I'll do is I'll gather all the information and I'll forward it to the board members for consideration. So whether you get it that Thursday or Friday, depending on, when I can get the information out to you, you'll have it within a week. Prior to a week.
Just
And that's
confirming
fine.
confirming the
Yep,
date
that's
of
fine.
the actual hearing. It's the 14th, is that
The
correct?
14th at 6 p.m. Correct.
Is there any concern that that's Holy Thursday?
Unfortunately, I did not take that into account when we did we were going by the availability of the calendar of.
I don't think that's not a municipal holiday. It just.
No.
Okay.
That should be fine.
Yeah, no, we actually, just so that the board knows, that when I did reserve, the reason we did these dates was because it was predicated on the availability of the council chambers with anticipation of us returning to the building at some point.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the Zoom. So because at some point when the council, and then when we have to have this discussion, is that, bless you, when the council comes back to convene your meetings at Township Hall, then more than likely a lot of the other boards and commissions will be following suit. So
Okay.
we're going to take their lead on that.
Great.
Okay. If that covers everything, I'd love to make a motion to adjourn this meeting or this workshop.
I don't think you may need a motion.
No-
to take
no
the
motion
Oh,
vote.
needed.
good. Well, then
Yeah.
let's adjourn this workshop.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Have a nice
Good night,
evening.
everybody.
You guys have a good night.
Good
All right,
night,
bye-bye.
everyone.
Good night, everybody. See you
Be
guys.
well.
Good night.